Hey, good afternoon, and welcome to DXC's Tech Talk Thursday on Tuesday. Together, we're going to be discussing legal analytics in the insurance space and beyond. I'm Phil Karecki, Chief Technologist for Insurance in the Americas with DXC. And it's an interesting topic that, the United States is the most litigious country in the world. There's over 40,000 new cases on a daily basis, and they impact almost every aspect of our life. In insurance in particular, it may not be as prevalent or obvious as it is in other pieces, but what's the value to insure the people that they serve as well as their own constituents if they have a better sense of the outcome of a case? We're here with Premonition, and we're looking at how the impact of case information, legal data from across the United States impacts decision-making for risk, decision-making on whether to insure, and decision-making whether to take something to court or settle out of court. So joined today, I'm with Faisal Siddiqi with DXC. Faisal?
Hey, Phil. This is Faisal. I'm Chief Technologist for Innovation and Ecosystems at DXC. And as a technologist, I love solving technology problems. We have this feeling that we can solve the hardest problems ourselves. But from the ecosystem's perspective, I have a great respect for the people who do and solve all the kinds of problems, business or technology problems, that we can't. And we realized early on in our efforts, Phil, you and I, that when we tried to innovate in isolation, we are left with only a partial solution. We do take the most significant parts of what our problem statements are, leaving the whole long tail of interesting innovations behind. And that's really why we started our DXC Invitational program, this program of engaging the creative, interesting capabilities of partners like Premonition. And I wanted to mention that today.
Excellent. I would note that they're also global now, right? Also with me from DXC is Joe Benson. Hey, Joe, if you wouldn't mind your 2 cents here.
Yeah, sure, Phil. So I'm Joe Benson. I'm the offering manager for claims at DXC. I've been involved in litigation management for a little over 20 years now. And I help support a product from DXC called the Legal Solution Suite, which is integrated with the Premonition solution we're going to talk about today. And I'm really excited about this partnership and our discussion that we're going to have today.
Hey, Joe, you're bringing a suit. Are you at a conference?
I am. I'm at a conference with Nathan. We are at the RIMS conference in Boston.
Cool.
Risk insurance, yes.
Excellent. So, and also with us, last but not least by any means, Nathan Huber, Chief Business Development Officer at Premonition. Nathan, sir, would you kind of introduce yourself?
Sure, Phil. It's good to be with you. I appreciate the opportunity to get to chat with you guys here on a Tuesday afternoon. I am, as Joe mentioned, I am sitting here in RIMS. There's probably about 15,000 attendees to this massive conference. So there will be some background noise, hopefully nothing too too unique, but just your normal crowd noises. But I head up business development for Premonition, and we built the world's largest litigation database and use it to do lots of cool things that we'll probably touch on a little bit later on in the conversation.
Absolutely. So, with that, Joe, I'm going to ask you first, then Faisal, the Premonition relationship. What's it look like from our side? Why Premonition in part? What engaged us in this technology and now this relationship, Joe?
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is this partnership started about 2 years ago at this very conference. I was walking the floor and found Premonition and saw their signage saying the largest litigation database, and really intrigued me and wanted to see what that meant for our customers who have been asking us for ways to really look at their data in more unique ways than just cost savings. Because a lot of what our system is about is about electronic billing and matter management and how they can reduce their costs. But the Premonition offering brings a unique perspective of how to really determine what cases need to be litigated and what your outcomes could be once litigation is determined. So giving a lot more insight into the data that these customers have. So it really is a way for us to expand what we're bringing to our customer base without having to build. This is not a solution that we would have built at DXC on our own. So the partnership is really important to us.
Excellent. Now, Faisal, we're not making decisions necessarily based purely on the form and function. Joe has a very specific need in his claims role. You and I are more interested in ecosystem and technology and bringing those things together. So how do we settle on a premonition? How do we do that kind of integration? What do they bring into our ecosystem from your perspective?
And I think because we're not approaching the potential partnerships in the way Joe might be by filling in some kind of missing capability, Phil, what you and I have been doing for the past year or so, really, probably longer, is laying the foundation for getting surprised, for identifying the kinds of things that we hadn't even anticipated. That's what gets me really excited. Now, in order to do that, what we're doing is setting the program for the DXC Invitational in a way, laying the foundation so that when we are told about or we discover capabilities such as the analytics that the Premonition has to offer, that we provide the foundation for them to quickly make use of it. Now, whether we do that through the technical integration or taking advantage of existing client relationships that we have, I think that's what the Premonition and similar opportunities bring to the table and how we facilitated those.
Excellent. Nathan, you kind of heard the DXC side, right? And I think there's some very obvious elements to that, and you guys must be pleased too that we and others are so interested in what you bring to the table. What's it look like from the Premonition side? What is it that Premonition does, and why is a DXC relationship of interest to you as well?
Yeah, so there's just a natural fit, and I'll explain why. So what we've done is we're solving the problem of transparency in the world of law, the lack of transparency, really. When you look at the way the big data is transforming industries, we can measure just about everything. When it comes to lawyer performance, not so much. When it comes to getting insights into litigation data, despite being in the most litigious country on the planet, everyone is struggling to actually arbitrage that data. And there's a number of reasons for that. What we've done is, first of all, we collect all of the data from the various courts out there in the US and even down to the state and the county level, which is where 97% of cases are filed. So Phil, you mentioned 41,000 cases a day previously. Well, most of those 41,000 are spread across over 3,000 different county and court systems. This is why it's been so difficult to do something with that data. And as we all know, you need to aggregate that data. When you collect it, you need to give it a common data structure. Then you can actually do something with it. So that's what we set off to do. We've done that. We built the world's largest litigation database. And then we're going another step further, and we're using that now to figure out things like which lawyers are getting which outcomes in front of which judges. What about specific case type? And just leveraging all the different information that we're finding in this database. So that's something that's very exciting. So we do data and analytics, but why the partnership with DXC is so, I think, so productive, and very excited to be embarking on this with you all, is that you guys have a tremendous systems already. You've been in the industry for a long time. You're well respected. For us, we should just do what we do best. That's data and analytics. And I don't want to have to compete with systems that are well placed, well run, and just go. There's a lot of system fatigue in the industry, right? And you go out, and if you tell people, hey, I've got one more system for you to buy, they're going to look at you and go, oh no, we got to learn a new onboarding process and everything else. But if you tell them, hey, I've got this valuable thing for you, and it's in the system you're already using, their eyes light up and they get very excited. So that's, to us, is a key strategy, and which is why we're excited to be partnering with you all.
I think it's a very fascinating area for us to get into as well. And I think one of the things that it raises in my own mind is the industry at large, insurance, is going to be one of the largest, if not the largest, consumer of Internet of Things data. Okay, telematics, wearables, all sorts of information from the smart home. And this is an element I think compares well to that as we begin to do more cross integration of the data, right? Nathan and Joe in particular. Are we looking at, say, how court cases are being resolved? And then if I'm an insurer, I have my information that says when I defended or pursued that case, I had drone footage, I had telemetric data, I had wearable information, and being to see the impact of this extra information that is now becoming more and more available to them to apply back to the results of previously adjudicated court cases. Are we looking down that path? And the reason I ask is that the biggest struggle that we're having in the industry on data is how do we monetize it? Nathan, you folks have something that's actually monetizable. I can do a direct correlation on cost savings, on court costs, coverage, case settlements. There's a specific benefit I get from your data, but other pieces, less so, let alone the impact on underwriting rates, cost, etc. So to Joe and Nathan and Faisal, after they've answered, I'd like to understand your thinking on how we would integrate this together. But in particular, again, Nathan, Joe, where are you guys going with this? What do we see as we begin to expand the core information that Premonition provides us and integrate it with this wealth of data that we're starting to see today, as well as what our clients already have?
Yeah, Nathan, I'll kind of take a first stab at that. So from a strategy perspective on the DXC side, we really see the other systems that surround litigation as key to this. You know, claim systems, policy systems being very, very important. So we've had some discussions with Nathan this week at RIMS about litigation scoring and the potential of litigation, and seeing if we can cut, claims off at the pass. Make sure that they don't ever get to the point where lawyers get assigned, because once that happens, once it gets into that litigation stage, in many ways it might be too late, right? Your cost is now going to spiral and it's going to expand exponentially rather quickly. So looking for ways to get the right claim to the right claim professional, because most organizations do have kind of litigation specialists, and getting claims settled in a way that's equitable to all and without the need for litigation is really something that we see is the way the industry is moving.
Well, it's a quick question for clarification. I'll plead my own ignorance in this case. When you say litigation scoring, what do you mean? So our audience has a sense of what that is. What goes into that?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's very simple, similar to what we've done for years with fraud. You look at certain indicators on a case and say, okay, because of this injury type, because of this jurisdiction, because of this, time of the year, this is going to have a higher potential for litigation than another claim. And there are certain injury types, there's certain property claims that do tend to lead to litigation more than others. So you can start to score claims on that potential to say, hey, this one's just got the indicators that it's going to move into a litigated stage.
Got it. Nathan, how about you?
Yeah, I would just add to that. These conversations come up often because, in a way, it's kind of the holy grail of managing claims, and that is being able to integrate a variety of different data sets to avoid litigation. Now, we're doing that where we can with the data that we're collecting at Premonition. We look at a plaintiff lawyer's record, say. If I've got a claim comes in, I'm able to see, all right, do I have a troublesome venue for this case type? What's the average length of case? I definitely want to avoid this type of case in a specific venue, especially if the representation on the plaintiff side is someone who likes to litigate and often gets a judgment and the cases last forever. I don't need to know all the details, but that's probably something I want to avoid. So we have clients using the data in that way, and they're using it on their pre-litigated matters. But to take it a step further is to then start to incorporate data around legal spend, and then as well, they sort of ask and receive, what are the settlement amounts and the different factors that Joe mentioned. But you start to put this together in a complete package, I can start to get not only an idea of risk scoring, but also how much that's going to cost me, down to how much I'm paying the lawyers and how much I'm settling it for. So it's incredibly powerful, and that's where all this is headed. I'm having far too many conversations about this stuff for it not to be that way, and I think we all know that that's the future.
So, Faisal, we've heard what the definitive value is, and I think in this case it's fairly clear on what the elements are. So that's kind of why I would do it. How do we make something like this happen, right? We've mentioned at least 5 or 6 different disparate data sources, and Premonition's got the one side organized and available for consumption. But everything else I've mentioned, there's a lack of consistency. What are we doing to address the data integration needs and then to help provide these kind of analytics?
Yeah. This is such a great example of one facet of a more complex problem. Absolutely, what Nathan's describing to us is an incredibly complex set of data capabilities, and doing the analytics on it gives us something as neat as a number that Joe mentioned about. It's like the probability of a certain outcome. I think being able to take that as a simple outcome makes it really useful to try and integrate it into a larger solution. Now, Phil, I think what this opens up to, I think where you're going with it is, well, what if we could take one component from Premonition, one component from LSS, where Joe plays, and then be able to put this into a claims management service, which could be a third solution. This is exactly the kind of composed modular solutions that we're able to now starting to put together to the point where the whole solution is worth much more, substantially more than the sum of the parts. And the interesting thing is that we bring some of that innovation into the picture, and so our partners bring others into the picture, into a fortuitous kind of a solution set that we otherwise may not have been able to produce.
When you say a solution set, how are we bringing that together? Again, I get what you're saying, right? That this information comes together. Gosh, we were talking big data. I mean, we can branch out into natural language processing and how that works into this. There's so many other areas, but this is no simple piece, right? We've got an integration today with Premonition and our legal services suite. How do we handle the complexity of the data inputs? I'm sure Nathan and his team wants to know, when we're bringing this information together and we're sitting together in front of the client, we go, here's how that comes to be. What techniques are we using to help drive that together? Do we do anything in a development environment, or?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to admit that in the past, we haven't always done it very well. It's been a very piecemeal patchwork kind of integration or efforts that we put together. And to address just that need for industrializing the ability to compose together, we put a developer portal called Developer Central, available at developer.dxe.com. And one of the significant realizations that we came to was that every bit of integration work that we were doing in an isolated way over here, let's say in LSS as the solution, could have value outside of that particular solution. So we elevated the position of each one of our capabilities as a modular component into this developer portal. We're rapidly approaching the point now where we are finding the same kinds of what I described as fortuitous opportunities to integrate and make use of solutions like what you mentioned, Phil, natural language processing. We received the contribution of a language detection component in Developer Central outside of insurance. It came from our workplace and mobility group, and they were able to contribute it as an inner source solution. So I can absolutely see the day where we compose solutions via Developer Central that are just composed from a variety of our own internal solutions, as well as those of our external partners.
Excellent. So now that we're bringing these things together, Nathan, back to you and kind of what's next for Premonition. One of the things that occurs to me as we're talking this industry, which has a large investment element, is right. How do we factor in your data in saying, hey, this new technology, this builder, this vendor, as I make these investments, I'm seeing an awful lot. Now that I'm saying it right, how does that affect underwriting? So if somebody's building a skyscraper in a city, sure, and we see a pattern of suits for, whatever it happens to be. Right. Are you seeing interests in companies going, hey, I want to know this so that as I'm deciding whether to invest, to underwrite, to insure, I consume this information, not just the litigation piece, but making informed decisions on how much I charge, how much I invest, or whether I insure or not. And frankly, where else is it going? I can see so many other elements that this begins to touch on as we start stacking this with other pieces. Where are you guys heading?
Yeah, so it's kind of the exciting part is that some of the things that we're doing right now, we never even envisioned that we would be dipping our toes into when we started the company 5 years ago, right? So it's fascinating because I enjoy it because I get to learn about new industries all the time. Some of them I've never even heard of, but there is application. You quite rightly said this. There's application for this in the underwriting world. I'm having a tremendous amount of conversations with underwriters who are wanting to plug into our database, set up an API, get information, sort of a litigation profile on a specific company that they're writing policies for. Do they have open cases? How many? How often? What types of cases are they? And you can roll that data around in a lot of different ways and unpack it, because once you have it, you can sort of just put it together, take it apart, move it into different places.
Yeah.
So to try to create more value. And that's something that we always love working on, because you think one of our core competencies is to arbitrage big data sets. And we're finding just endless ways to do that just with the data set we have. But I think you mentioned also the financial world, so I'll touch on that quickly. It's very interesting. We've seen some fascinating, we've done some studies already, and we've also allowed some real smart data folks to get their hands on our data and look at how this might impact the value of a stock as companies, their litigation rises and falls. And how is that correlated? Because, as we all know, litigation is expensive. If you have a company that's involved in a lot of litigation, you're not going to see that in the 10K. But you might get an alert, or you might see that there are certain trends there that could be troublesome. And so it's got a lot of parallels with the underwriting world. And we're very excited to see where this goes, and which is also why we're having quite a few conversations in the enterprise data world as well. So again, new ways to use this data, but I'm very excited to be working with all of you guys as we explore this together too.
Yeah, I think that it is an exciting time that we're in right now. Technologically speaking, we're actually at a point of better, faster, cheaper, all three simultaneously instead of the old joke, any two of the three. Mm-hmm. And it's fascinating, right? Bandwidth is ubiquitous. Compute, virtual compute capacity, storage, also ubiquitous. I mean, we really don't have limits in the sense that we kind of cut our teeth with. And it's changing the industry. So, before we get to kind of closing, or in the end here, Nathan, if you had a wish from us, right, what is it that Faisal, myself, Joe, what could DXC do to really help a corporation, a startup like a Premonition, right? What's that next big step beyond the simple relationships that we have, right? What is it we can help do to game change for you?
Well, I suppose the answer to that question is probably different for every company, right? For us, I always like to go back to the simplicity of what do we do best, and then keep doing that better and better and better. So the thing that we do best is we take data and we arbitrage that data set and find value in it. And we're doing that with legal data. We've done that with lobbying data. We've done that with a lot of different data sets. But to work with a partner that has data resources like DXC does, where we can start pulling together these big data sets that we could not get access to in the public record, right? And that allows us to kind of do what we do best, and which I think creates a very strong foundation for a good partnership that ultimately benefits the client. Because if we're at cross purposes all the time we do this best, but we don't do this part very well, but we're really, sticklers, and we want to make sure that we control that element, then we're just not going to grow a productive partnership. So really, I think finding out which, in a partnership, finding out which each component does best, and then working together and being very honest and forthright about that. You guys have been, so I really appreciated that throughout this whole process.
That's good. What occurs to me, and before you kind of get into some final thoughts here, is that so many of these discussions that Faisal, and particularly you and I have had, it's never what you expect it to simply be, right? Yes, it looks like a rock, and Premonition does what it does, but when you start peeling back things and looking further, the cross opportunities are so significant, and it's never as simple as, oh, we just have case data, okay? Or I've just got location-based services, as we've seen with other partners. It's the intersection of those, right? You may find that, certain regions and certain seasons, certain times, as you mentioned, right, are more litigious than others, or might be favorable in different ways. I know, for example, right, the old joke about the full moon, but there is, an aspect of that drove the term lunacy. And what's exciting to me right now with partners like Premonition is that, yes, we start down a single path, but it's only 2 or 3 steps before we're seeing so many other paths open up in front of us. And that's why it's so exciting. And Nathan, I'm looking forward to doing more with Premonition, et cetera, as we drive into these client opportunities. And we're just scratching the surface right now. Joe, got a few minutes here before we close up. What are your thoughts going forward with relationship and where we're heading?
Yeah, I think this just fits very well into our kind of claims ecosystem idea that we've been percolating at DXC, and the idea of focusing on what DXC does best as well. Just as Nathan said for his company, we want to do the same thing at DXC. We want to do very well at claims administration. We want to do very well at litigation management, and we want to farm out and partner with people for things that we're not that great at, or we haven't really come across yet. So this partnership fits right into that and makes a lot of sense for us. And really, it is a funny anecdote with a few minutes here is Nathan has actually helped one of our other ecosystem partners look at a risk they were underwriting to see if it was a good one to go after. So even our ecosystem partners are coming together and working together, which is very, very, very exciting.
Well, that's a slight segue. Before I give Nathan for your final thoughts, now, in your closing, who's using the information, right? How's it being used? We touched on so many pieces, but is there a singular group, Nathan, that is consuming this? And where do you see yourselves going? Where's Premonition? Where's this whole thinking 12 months, 18 months from down the line? And that's far future in today's standards.
Right. Well, we have a lot going on, and as I mentioned, we're dipping our toes into a number of different industries. But I'll kind of keep it focused to where our partnership is currently focused on, and that's within the claims and the litigation environment. I'm finding that clients are wanting our data more and more available earlier in the life cycle of a claim, and they want this information available to the adjuster at the very beginning, not wait until it's gone into litigation and there's already a problem. So really it's finding ways to create and leverage the value that we're providing in this data as soon as possible. And I think that the idea that Joe had talked about earlier, whether it's looking at a total cost analysis or how likely a claim is to go into litigation, that right there could be, a massive play for all of us here that would have tremendous benefits for the day in, day out users in the claims world. So that's for that specific thing. That's my goal. That's where I want to be with this. And I think that we have a real shot at doing this together. For Premonition at large, we're looking more at, this is just one aspect of what we're doing. So we're going to keep focusing on continuing to create more data, value from the data, and then continue to accumulate additional data resources to overlay with the data that we collect now. So we're very excited where that's headed. Excellent.
Faisal, any closing thoughts on your end?
Yeah, as foundation providers, what we're really doing is the very first thing we do is to make it easy for you, Nathan, to reach markets, to reach customers, to get visibility. But I want to emphasize that is the beginning point, not the ending point. An equal part of the ecosystem is the bi-directional flow of innovative thought. And that's what we would be pleased if we could give you some direction in how to, for example, improve the data you collect, the models that you produce, but potentially even other interesting things since we are a global company to get into different markets. we are running the invitational program across different regions. We're doing one in Australia right now, then in India and Europe, UK, and back in the United States later on this year in November. What the opportunity that I'd like to present to you and to all of our partners really is to tell us how we can help you improve your services and capabilities, and where we can work and innovate together.
Excellent. So I think that brings to closure today's Tech Talk. For those of you who've given us 30 minutes of your time today to watch this, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Joe and Faisal, as always, thank you for helping co-host and drive these things. And to Nathan, a very special thank you to Premonition and how you so eloquently represented our partnership. I appreciate your time today and the contribution to what we're developing.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, guys. It was fun.
Thank you. Bye.